jazz was born out of suffering of the first early black slaves. It has nothing to do with New Orleans or Africa. It was born in America through experiences. And the first of that era was the spirituals. The second era was ragtime. Third era, Kansas City swing, bop. And you see the blues on the outside of the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's lost in the music of today. The blues is the spiritual contents of the music, and the music is healing to the soul. And I don't think anyone realized that. I got that together myself, and had David Stone Martin, very popular artist, to sketch this for me.
He did so many
and
of those
that
covers.
is the truth of it, because I've lived through the 4 eras. I played through the 4 eras of it.
Spirituals. And the work songs go along with it. The spirituals.
Pardon?
The work songs.
Yes.
The spirituals, the field callers, the cries, the blues.
Yes.
And the various.
That is the
God,
the blues part of it.
And then some people think that you know, the spirituals and the blues are totally different kinds of music. Mary says the feeling is the same in both of them, and then she calls the blues the spiritual feeling in jazz.
Because when the slaves were suffering, that's what those are the type of things that they would sing.
And I'm thinking also of the tree that you've drawn. It's all the artists. It's the. Well, that's your whole point. There's a continuity. There's a history. That one leads to the other.
Right.
And there's always that's what you're talking about, really. Yeah.
And a lot of the musicians today are going back to the beginnings. They're listening to the records and trying to get a fresh start from what they hear. I mean, the young musicians now who are going back and listening to Fats Waller and all of Duke's music and try to create something fresh out of all that.
Roots. Roots again.
Yes, I remember that. But I had sketched this before Roots came.
I know. Well, you've always been part of this. I think.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something that I met Father Pete O'Brien when he was going to school in California, and he called me. He says, "You better." I had stopped playing again. He says, "You better come out and do something about jazz." I said, "Okay, if you can come out with me, because I'm very sensitive, you know, and I can't do everything myself." And he is a real giant, and he has learned quite a bit about the music. So we went in a little club in New York to do something about it, and we stayed there 6 months or close to a year. And in no time, as many as 30 clubs had opened up. In the beginning, there was only 3, and that was weekend gigs. Everybody had gone crazy with the rock. And so when he came out with me, he's done a terrific job in bringing it back to where it was. There were other people out there, except for instance, the Jazzmobile and everything. But when they went on the street, the people had completely forgotten the music. And I followed the Jazzmobile one day, and some of the kids said, "What is that they're playing?" And when I was sitting in the club, kids would come in and they'd go home and tell their parents, says, "Well, we found a new music and a new pianist." And when the parents came and they says, "My God," says, "that's Mary Lou Williams. She's been around for years." See, that's how we almost lost a great art.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years ago, it was you couldn't find a Lester Young record anywhere. And in New York, it was the Vanguard, the Village Gate, and the Half Note, and they were weekend gigs. And now, you know, there are all kinds of places there. You have Rick's here in town.
And also Jazz Showcase here.
You know, there's a big revival, and all sorts of people like Buddy Tate and Helen Humes. They're all working again all the time for good salaries and a big following, records, everything.
It's in Mary Lou and the Cookery in New York, which brings in the artists who some have forgotten, and suddenly there they in that glory with Helen Humes or...
Yes.
Well, Mary Lou opened the Cookery. That was her idea.
For him.
She went back to Barney Joseph's and said, "Why don't you put a piano over there?" It was a restaurant.
Yes. I just went down for lunch, and I was talking to him. I said, "Hey, put a piano over there." He says, "I'm afraid my customers wouldn't like it." Said they like to eat and read. I said, "We'll get new customers." So he said, "Well, go to the union, find out what I'll have to pay a week for bass and drums." Well, we're not drums, bass and piano, because it's underneath the apartment, you know, and we weren't allowed to use drums, and so that's where we started our hard work.
And that engagement, I think, had an awful lot to do. There was tremendous publicity and excitement about that. John Hammond and the New Yorker and everybody came running around again. And after that, you know, one club after the other, Michael's Pub and all these places in New York where all these fabulous musicians
now, of course,
are
a number
working.
of other cities. It's
all over the country.